Good afternoon. Welcome to today's session, ANZ School Library Series, Exploring Interfaces, Explora, EBSCOhost, and EDS, which of course stands for EBSCO Discovery Service. My name is Rachel Lowe, and I'm an EBSCO training specialist. My background is in education, midwifery, and library and information studies. I'm a certified librarian. I have worked as a primary school teacher as well as a university lecturer, and I continue to practice clinically as a registered midwife. Please note that today's session is being recorded. You may have noticed that your microphone has been automatically muted. If you have any questions as we're going along, please hit the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen or go ahead and type your message into the chat box. Please don't feel like you need to wait until the end of the session to ask any questions. Feel free to jump in anytime. A bit later on today, you will be receiving from me an email with a link to the recording of today's session, a link to the PowerPoint slides, and a link to an online evaluation. The online evaluation only takes a couple of minutes to complete, and if you're able to take the time to do so, we do appreciate it. Each one we receive is read through carefully, and we use them to help structure future training sessions. I've put together a few objectives for today's session. It is my hope that by the end of the session, you will be able to describe the difference between the interfaces Explora, EBSCOhost, and EBSCO Discovery Service. We will explore Explora, including topic overviews, featured collections, featured content, and more. You'll be able to access content, use tools to work with your results, and locate help and support materials. So the different interfaces we're going to look at today are Explora, which has been designed specifically for schools and public libraries. And the interface I will be looking at today is one specifically designed for primary schools. We're also going to be looking at EBSCOhost, and we'll be looking briefly at EBSCO Discovery Service. So what's the difference between the interfaces? The database we're going to focus on today is Australia-New Zealand Reference Centre Plus. Now, whether you access this database on Explora or whether you access it on EBSCOhost or whether you access it on EBSCO Discovery Service, you will still be able to access the same content. It's the way that it's laid out that is a little bit different. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Just bear with me a moment, please. Okay, so here I'm accessing Australia-New Zealand Reference Centre Plus on the Explora user interface. And you can see here, I can see the database that I'm accessing here. If you click on it, all the databases available on that profile will show up. Now, you may have several databases available on that profile, or you may have only one. If you have more than one, you have the option of selecting all of them, one of them, several of them, or whatever you choose. So you can search multiple databases at once. For simplicity's sake today, I'm just looking at a profile that only has Australia New Zealand Reference Centre Plus on it. So as you can see here on the Explorer database, and I've got the version that's aimed at primary schools, as you can see here, I have a highlight here about the pilot Amelia Earhart. As I scroll down, I can see several popular topics that I can explore, and they're also laid out in tiles. And I also have featured content. There's a spotlight on a topic, and there are a number of featured collections there. And you will recognize these are some very well-known names of publications aimed at primary school age children. Now, I can also access the Australia New Zealand Reference Centre Plus database on other interfaces. For example, I can access it on EBSCOhost. So this is the EBSCOhost user interface. Again, I can see the database that I am accessing. And if I click on it, I can see all the databases available on that profile. In this case, we've only got the one available. But you will notice I don't have any of those highlights and things there. Now, no matter which way I'm accessing this database, whether I'm accessing it on Explora, which has all the content laid out in this very attractive way, or whether I'm accessing on EBSCOhost, I can access the same information. So if I do a search for environment on the EBSCOhost database, I can see I've got 514,000 results there. Now I've got my limiters or filters here. So if I just look at full text items in this database to do with environment, I can see them listed there. Now, if I perform this same search in the Explora database, and you will notice that in Explora, the full text limiter or filter is chosen by default. So that is automatically turned on. And you'll see I have the same number of results. So I think it's quite obvious why Explora is specifically aimed at school libraries. You can see it set out in such a way that school-age children would find very easy to find content. Now again, if I'm using the EBSCOhost user interface and accessing the same database, I have access to all of the same content. It's just laid out differently. So I have to go looking for it. If I go to the landing page, I don't have any special features highlighted there for me. I can, of course, do a search and I can select my filters or limiters there. Now, EBSCO Discovery Service works a little bit differently. If your library subscribes to EBSCO Discovery Service, this is a single search box where all of your resources are loaded into it. So when your users go in and perform a search, they're searching not only whatever database we're talking about today, in this case, Australia New Zealand Reference Centre Plus, you can link up all sorts of resources to your discovery service or your discovery layer. And that includes items in your print collection. All right, so we're going to have a bit of a deeper dive into Explora today. And I have included here a link, and I'll just pop that in the chat box. Okay, sorry, I'm just putting that in the chat box. So if you go ahead and click on the link that is in the chat box, and it will ask you for a login and a password. And I'll just go ahead and put those in the chat box as well. So the login is demo_schools. And the password is the word train, but it's capital T, R, A, the number 1, the letter N, and an exclamation point. So just be sure that you're putting in a 1 instead of an I, and also that you're using a capital T. So again, that link is in the chat box. So if you'd like to follow along with what we're doing today, this will take you to the Explora user interface. The login is demo_schools, and the password is train, but it is capital T, lowercase r, a, the number 1, lowercase n, and an exclamation point. So those will be in the chat box if you would like to join along. All right, and I'll just go ahead and share my screen again. So here I am on the Explora user interface. And some things I would like to point out here. You will see a topic overview featured here, and you will notice that each time you log in, that does change periodically. So at the moment, it's looking at Amelia Earhart, the pilot. And if I go ahead and click anywhere here, this will give me information about Amelia Earhart. And you can see that what it's done is it has performed a search for Amelia Earhart. Now you will notice with my search results, you can see I've got 1,011 search results there. Each of these is labeled with the type of search result it is. So you'll see trade publications, periodicals, you'll sometimes see books, and so on. You'll notice that your search terms have been highlighted and are in italics. So the title of this is The Aviator and the Showman, Amelia Earhart, George Putnam, and the Marriage That Made an American Icon. Tells us that it's in Publishers Weekly. It gives us the date of publication, tells us the database. Now, as I mentioned, you can search multiple databases if you have more than one database on your profile. And it gives us the beginnings of a description here. And you'll find for like peer-reviewed journal articles, you might have an abstract there. So this gives us some information about what the article is about. And you'll notice that each article has been tagged with a number of subjects. So this one, for example, has been tagged with social workers, Earhart Amelia, 1897 to 1937, Great Depression, and so on. So this is a way of applying metadata. It's just like using hashtags on social media. And you'll notice that this is hyperlinked text. So for example, if I were to click on social workers, I will then run a search for other items in this database that have been tagged with the subject social worker. You'll also notice that the title is clickable. Now here I have my access option, so I can see that this article is available both in PDF and online full text. I can click on either of those. If I click on the title, this takes me to what's known as the detailed record. So I can see details, bibliographic information about this article. I can see the title, I can see the source, I can see the subject terms it's been tagged with, I can see this abstract or description, I've got a word count, and so on. Now you'll notice the source is blue hyperlink text. So if I click on this, I will run a search for articles from Publishers Weekly within this database. You'll notice these icons here. If you're ever unsure what an icon is, just hover your cursor over it. So I can save this detailed record. I can cite. If you click on cite, you'll get a drop-down menu. You can scroll through your citation formats. When you find the one you want to use, you can simply copy that to the clipboard. So this is a great tool for those students who are learning about citing. You can also export citations as well. Now you can add this to a project, and I will talk more about that shortly. You can share it or you can download it. If I go into the full text, and again, here I have the option of PDF or online full text. If I click on the PDF, that will open for me, and I can see it here. I can see I've got my publication contents. Again, I have some icons here. If I hover my cursor, I can see some text. So I can save this item, I can cite it, I can add it to a project, share it, download it, print it. That gives me my publication contents. There's a listen feature, and this is a text to speech feature. And also here I have accessibility support. If I download the online full text, it's the same information, just in a different format. Now, when you have online full text, you have these icons we've already seen, but you also have a translate function as well. All right, now I'm just going to click on Explora to take me back to that landing page. You'll notice that our topic here has changed. I can discover popular topics here, or I can explore topics with these tiles here. So let's say I'm interested in health, and it gives me some subtopics here. Let's say I'm interested in the human body, and let's say I'm interested in how the brain works. And this will give me information pertaining to that. And you can see it's run a search for brain. Now you'll notice the full text filter is selected by default. I can also apply a publication filter. So my three most common publication ranges are here. I can also look at specific source types. So am I just interested in newspapers? Am I interested in magazines? Am I interested in academic journal articles? As you can see, if I click 6 more, I can see all of the options there. To access all filters, I can click on all filters and a menu slides out from the right-hand side. You will notice I do have the ability to do a more specific publication date range. What we saw here were just the most commonly used publication dates. But you'll notice here I can filter by publication date by specific database. So if I were searching multiple databases, here I could filter just to one or more of those. I can limit by source type. I can limit by subject. So as you recall, each item is tagged with subjects. So if I just wanted to look at items that have been tagged with brain research, for example, I can. And these numbers tell me how many of the articles in my results list are tagged with each of those things. I can also limit by Lexile range, which is a reading level, and also by specific publication. This is also an interesting way of seeing where my articles are coming from. So the majority of my articles are from The Sun. I have some from The Times, from the UK. I have some from the Toronto Star, the Sydney Morning Herald, and so on. All right, I also wanted to point out the research tools here. So I can start a new search. This does link to curriculum standards as well. You'll notice when I click on that, it does open in a new tab, and I can select the country that I'm interested in and the standard that I'm interested in. I'm based in New South Wales, so if I'm interested in looking at the New South Wales syllabus, the English syllabus for, let's say, 2021, and let's say stage 2. And here I can access those standards. There's also citation help, and this is aimed at students. There's also a research guide, a help tab. You can also link to EBSCO products. There's a publications authority and a subjects authority. So if I click on publications authority, you can see that I can search for publications in the ANZ Reference Centre Plus. So I can search. Let's say I want to search by subject and description, and I'm interested in publications on the environment. And I can see there is a publication called The Environment that is available in this database um, in both HTML full text and PDF. And as I scroll, I can see those different publications there. If I click into one of them, let's say I'm interested in Australia, New Zealand's heritage and environment. When I click into that, I can search within the publication and it gives me more information about it. If I want to look at the publication called Environment, gives me some information about that. I can access previous issues and articles, and it tells me uh, what's available within this database. So there is full text available from 1975 to the present with a 12-month delay, which is sometimes referred to as an embargo. That's a publisher restriction. So let's say I know I'm interested in a particular issue from 2022. If I click on the issue I'm interested in, you'll notice that that runs a search for that particular issue, and I can see the articles from that issue there. Now, I also wanted to mention advanced, advanced searching. So we've looked at basic searching. If I click on Explora, this takes me to the page here, and I can type in the term I'm looking for. Let's say I'm interested in finding information about flowers. I can type that in. I can apply some filters if I'm interested, and so on. But you also have the option of doing an advanced search. And if I open advanced search, you'll notice that I can do a more complex search. And you'll also notice there are fields here. So let's say I want to look in a specific publication, for example, and it tells me that I need to use SO as the two-letter code for that. So let's say I'm interested in looking at the source Time magazine, and I'm interested in articles about Australia. You will notice as I'm typing, suggestions appear. So I'm going to go ahead and do a search. And I can see I've got 315 results there. And these are articles from Time magazine that are to do with Australia. So you do have the ability to do more complex searching if that's something that you're interested in, or if that's something that your students are at that level to be trying. Now, you may have noticed this natural language search here. If I turn this on, I can type something in more of a natural language search. So for example, I'll click on New Search first, and I'll turn on my natural language search. And I'm going to type, how does climate change affect endangered species? Now, we live in a Google world, so many kids will be used to simply typing a question into a search engine. I know that for some librarians, that can be a bit frustrating, but natural language search is an option within Explora. It does need to be turned on in the back end. So if that's something you're interested in for your library, we can certainly organize that for you. There's no cost involved in that. Now, if you click on Show Refined Query, you can see that the interface has put together a query for us using our Boolean operators and using parentheses. So it has created climate change or global warming and endangered species or threatened species. And I've got just over 1,000 results on my results list. All right. Now, I also wanted to have a look at going into full text. So I'm just going to click on New Search, and there is a specific item I'm looking for. So I'm typing in Lindsay Crock's sculpture garden. And I must have spelled that wrong. Okay, that's all right. Let's look at something else. I'm going to click on New Search. Now you will notice the difference between if you click on New Search, you don't get all of those suggestions, whereas if you click on Explora, you do. And again, you will notice that this changes frequently. So let's go ahead and click on Pets, and that's going to run a search for pets. And as I scroll down, I'm just going to pick one at random. Let's go ahead and look at the PDF of this one. Okay, now you will notice for some of these, your PDFs are just like what you would see in the magazine, and you will have some really great photos and things like that. Again, you do have your publication contents here, and you do have the different icons that we looked at. All right, I do want to mention the dashboard, and this may be something that your students may be interested in. So if they sign into My EBSCO, and they will need to create a personal user account. And once you've done that, I'm just going to go ahead and sign into mine. If you don't have an account, you just need to click on Create an Account. All that's required is a first name, an email address, create a password, tick consent, and you can create an account. Once you have that account, you're able to save projects, you're able to save items, and so on. So you will notice a bookmark here. So if I wanted to save this, I can save that into my saved items, and I can add to project. So here, okay, it hasn't accepted my sign in. I'm just going to try again. All right, just bear with me a moment. All right, and once you're signed in, you are able to save projects, save items, and so on. So as you can see, I've got a couple of projects I've saved here. If I go ahead and perform that search again, you'll notice when I click on this kebab menu, one of the options is to add to a project. And I've got that drop-down menu there of the projects I've already created. To create a new project, I just need to click on New Project, give it a name, a due date's optional, a description's optional, and I can create from there. All right. So that's been a bit of an overview of the different interfaces that you may find useful with a focus on the Explora user interface. So does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you very much for attending today. I hope you found this session useful. As I mentioned, you will be receiving an email from me a bit later on today with a link to the recording of today's session, a copy of the PowerPoint slides, and a link to an online evaluation. Today's session is the first in a series of 5 sessions that will be held each Wednesday at midday. and that is Australian Eastern Standard Time. I am based in Sydney. So please feel free to join us for the rest of the series. Thank you so much for attending today.